Hi, and welcome to the Stock Scores Market Minutes for December 5th, 2016. This week's topic, fear creates opportunity. And then after that, I'll go over the trade of the week on NBR. All right, let's get into this week's discussion. Fear creates opportunity. When investors fear the worst, they often accept prices that are too low. What happens is trends that are going down go parabolic. That means they start to curve and get steeper and steeper. And when that happens, emotion is high. These sharp downward trends that come into long-standing areas of support often reverse. And so buying these fearful trends at support can be very lucrative. Let me give you an example that happened in oil. Here you can see a trend that got steeper over time, went very parabolic. Now, support is at anywhere where price stopped going down and started going up in the past. So you had support here, and then you have support here. Well, notice this line of support, if I draw it across like that, we bounced off of it here and also here. What I like to look for is when there is a parabolic downward trend, the market hits a new low, but then manages to close above its open. Those are the days I want to look at it. So we had support here. And here we just barely closed above its open, but here was a more resounding close above its open. We know it closed above its open because the candle is green. So that's what you look for. Hits a new low, closes above its open in a parabolic downward trend at support, and look at the rally we got out of that. All right, let's get into this week's analysis. This is the chart of the S&P 500 on a 30-day, 60-minute chart. You can see that the upward trend line was broken. We had some great gains, the market digesting those gains, and we're starting to build some falling tops here. So my expectation is that we probably have a little more downside to go. The buyers feel tired, the sellers are taking some profits, and so I think in the short term, we could see some more short-term profit taking. Now, big picture, we still have a good upward trend here. We might have a couple weeks of downward move, perhaps even come back to the trend line, but the trend is up, and therefore I expect that we will continue higher in the weeks and months ahead. On the small cap side, we broke through resistance a few weeks ago, and now we're just going to back and fill a little bit. The market's kind of gotten up to the top of the channel where it finds some resistance, so it wouldn't be unreasonable to have it pull back toward the bottom of the channel, but the trend is up, and so look at weakness as a buying opportunity. On the Canadian market, we've been more or less sideways for the last couple of weeks after really doing quite well. Basically, the market taking a breather. Got some pretty good support there. I am a little bit concerned about the falling tops that are building, but until I get a breakdown through that, I'm not going to get too worried. I think this is a neutral chart in the short term. Long term, we are in a bull market approaching long-term resistance up in here. So we've got another strong 1 or 2 weeks to the upside before we're going to hit that strong long-term resistance where this market probably gets stuck. So short-term could see a bit of a pullback, but then I think another push toward those highs where the market will probably get stuck. This is, I think, one of the more interesting charts this week. This is a chart of the TSX Venture, which has been in a pullback mode for a few months. You can see the pullback line, something like that, but we actually broke that on Friday as there was a little bit of strength in gold. I wouldn't say it was great strength, but it feels like the mining stocks are a little oversold, gold a little oversold, and perhaps we're going to get a little bounce back rally in these junior miners in the short term. I don't think it's anything more at this point than something that the swing traders can play. I don't think you necessarily want to be buying these stocks for the long term, at least not now. We need to see more of an improvement in the chart long term. Speaking of parabolic downward trends, this is the US bond market, this is Treasuries, and you can see the parabolic move to the downside, but also how we have come down to support there. Now, this is a weekly chart. I can't recall if the market was able to close above its open on Friday, but this may be a situation where the bond market in the US is pretty oversold, due for a bounce, and we may see that in the next week, maybe even 2 weeks, but I do think that's something to watch for, is a bounce back in the bond market, which of course, if bonds bounce higher, that means interest rates come down a little bit. So if you're looking to get a mortgage, maybe wait a week or two and see if we get that bounce back. Here is the US dollar. It has rallied up to resistance. This is a weekly chart. And so you can see here the trend went parabolic. So just as parabolic trends to the upside usually reverse that support, if parabolic downtrends reverse its support. Parabolic uptrends, which is what we have in the US dollar, also typically reverse at resistance. So we've got the all-time, not the all-time highs, but the highs of 2015 into 2016 there. And my expectation is we see a little bit of a pullback in the US dollar near term, which would sort of work with the bounce back in the bond market. On the gold side, of course, if the US dollar does get stuck at that resistance, does pull back, that's going to help gold come back from being oversold. Here you have a parabolic trend to the downside on gold. There's the linear trend. I do think gold is oversold and in the next couple of weeks makes a bounce back. I don't like gold longer term, but at short term, I do think that there is a bounce on the way. And on the oil side, there we had that bounce off of support and a nice rally this week on the OPEC news. But now we're coming up into this resistance zone where I think oil will get stuck and perhaps roll over and head lower again. So I think the upside short term is somewhat limited in oil. I would suggest taking some profits if you have them on short-term trades in oil stocks, although I think the long-term picture is still panning out. A little bit of a pickup in fear this week. This is a 30-day, 60-minute chart, and you can see we started to get some fear coming into the market Thursday and Friday. This, of course, the VXX, which goes up when there's some concern about volatility in the future. Basically, the market has gone a long way since the election, and you're getting some profit taking, and that could help this particular ETF go up in the short term. Really only a vehicle for short-term traders. So US stocks bullish long-term, neutral short-term. Canadian stocks bullish long-term, neutral short-term. Both of them starting to show that the buyers are getting tired. On the gold side, bearish long-term, neutral short-term. That could even be upgraded to bullish if we get a little bit more of a rally early next week. On the oil side, neutral in both time frames. Stocks are seeing some profit taking and a real lack of buyer enthusiasm this week after the great run higher through November. The trend is up, but it is tired. Oil has also rallied well this week, but is also getting tired as it comes into resistance where it should stall. Gold oversold and looks like it may make a short-term bounce, and we got a little bit of fear coming into the market. All right, so this week for my trade of the week, I'm showing you Neighbors, NBR, which is a stock we traded in my live chat room on Wednesday, my active trader room, and the buy signal came right there. Potentially there, and that was a nice day trade. But what I also want to show you is how this stock has worked out as a longer term trade, because I also featured this stock in my daily newsletter right here on the break out of the ascending triangle pattern, and that was back 45-50 days ago, but it's really starting to move along now and outperforming the broader sector of that market. So this was trade of the week for both the day trade and a position trade, and it remains a hold as a position trade, and if you happen to own it, I would stick with the trade for now, but it is starting to go a little bit parabolic, so realize that it may see some profit taking soon. Well, that has been the Stock Scores Market Minutes for December 5th, 2016. Have a great week in the market and trade well.